No one likes to admit they're wrong. It never feels good to eat your words and admit that you weren't right. I know I don't like it. I still remember a time back when I was younger. I set the record amongst my siblings for most consecutive spankings received, 10. All because I was stubborn, wouldn't admit that I was wrong, and apologized to my mother. That's pretty disappointing of myself to think about, but funny to look back on since I have improved since then. Anyways, it's just not enjoyable to acknowledge or confess when you're wrong. However, that doesn't mean we're not called to do so. This week's verse is 1 John 1:9. It reads, "If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us of our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness." So as we travel through our walk with Christ, we often experience this unique relationship between grace and truth. God's grace and God's truth. God's grace is boundless and everlasting. Even when we don't deserve it, it is right there for us. When we confess our sins and admit that we're wrong, God's grace rushes in to meet us. It's not about our efforts to earn His forgiveness, it's about His willingness to extend it. God's grace is a wonderful reminder of how He has wiped our slate clean and our sins no longer define us. But grace is not alone. God's truth is forever as well. This is a standard that shows us we need His grace. When we admit that we're wrong, we acknowledge the truth about our mistakes, the times we fall short, and our brokenness. In 1 John 1:9, we see that grace and truth are in perfect harmony. When we admit that we're wrong, we align ourselves with God's truth, and God responds with His grace. Now I know that it's never easy, but let us work to acknowledge the truth of our need for His grace, to confess our sins and find the incredible gift of His everlasting forgiveness. I pray that you may find comfort in the unchanging truth of God's character and be overwhelmed by the depth of His grace. Let His grace and truth guide you as you connect with God and connect with others. Always remembering that in Him you may find forgiveness, peace, and transformation.